Welcome to Adu Globe. Discover new ideas, learn exciting things, and be amazed every day. Dark skies, the sound of drones above, explosions lighting up the horizon. But here's the question. Did one drone strike really shake the entire front line? Or is it just another story designed to shock the world? Tonight, we dive deep into the mystery. Some reports claim the strike injured a top general, sparking panic across the front line. Others say it's nothing but exaggerated news. But in wars like these, truth is often the first casualty. The only way to understand is to break down what really happened. The calm of the battlefield was shattered in an instant. General Andrei Abachev, one of Russia's most senior commanders, was traveling near the front line when a Ukrainian drone suddenly appeared overhead. Within seconds, the sky erupted in flames as the drone struck his convoy with pinpoint precision. Soldiers scattered, chaos unfolded, and the air filled with smoke and panic. At first, many dismissed the news as propaganda. But then, Ukraine released video footage, grainy yet undeniable, showing the exact moment the strike took place. Hours later, shockwaves spread further when a Russian governor officially admitted that General Abachev had been injured. For the first time, speculation became fact, and the world began to take notice. For Ukraine, this was not just an attack, it was a statement. It proved that even the highest military ranks were within reach. For Russia, it raised urgent doubts about security, leadership, and vulnerability on the battlefield. Could low-cost drones really strike fear deeper than heavy missiles and tanks ever could? The attack left more questions than answers. Was this the turning point of the war, or just another dramatic chapter? What is certain is that one drone strike sent tremors through an entire army's leadership. If one hit could create such disruption, what would happen if many more followed? In the middle of the chaos, reports began to surface that shocked the world. Ukrainian sources claimed something far more dramatic. That General Abachev not only survived the drone strike but suffered devastating injuries, even losing a hand and a leg. These statements spread rapidly across international media, raising eyebrows and fueling debates. But then came the Russian side of the story. Their official line was different. Yes, the general was wounded, but only described as seriously injured. No mention of amputations, no confirmation of the dramatic details. In war, truth is often the first casualty. Each side has its narrative, its version of reality, designed not only to inform but also to influence. If Ukrainian reports are true, then the morale impact inside Russia could be devastating. On the other hand, if the Russian version is correct, then the story is one of survival, resilience, and control. This clash of narratives leaves us with a burning question: how close are we really to the truth? The timing of these claims is just as important as the claims themselves. When a high-ranking general is attacked, both sides know the psychological weight of that story. By amplifying or downplaying injuries, they can sway public perception, boost morale, or weaken the enemy's spirit. This is not just about a man, but about the war of information. So where does this leave us? On one side, we hear of lost limbs and a fallen commander. On the other, we hear of a wounded but living general. The gap between these stories is wide, and the truth may remain hidden for days, weeks, or perhaps forever. What matters for us is not just the fact, but how each side uses the story to shape the war itself. The rumors of collapse. In the last few days, bold headlines echoed across Telegram channels, news outlets, and even global media. The Sumy Frontline has completely collapsed. The statement alone is dramatic enough to capture global attention. But the real question is, did the frontline truly break apart, or is this another case of information warfare at play? According to maps and assessments by respected outlets such as the BBC and the Institute for the Study of War (ISW), the situation is far from simple. Ukrainian forces did manage to retake certain contested areas, pushing Russian troops back in localized counterattacks. In some places, Ukrainian soldiers even raised their flags, sparking claims of a total breakthrough. But analysts quickly clarified, a few regained positions don't equal the collapse of an entire front line. The situation is fluid, violent, and constantly shifting. On the ground, the reality is much harsher than the headlines suggest. Footage released by Ukrainian sources shows muddy trenches, burnt-out armored vehicles, and soldiers pushing forward under heavy fire. Russian channels, meanwhile, emphasize that reinforcements have been sent and that fighting remains fierce. The result: a stalemate filled with brutal skirmishes, shifting lines, and high casualties. The front is not broken. It is bending, bleeding, and contested. Experts warn against accepting either side's claims at face value. The so-called collapse is more of a narrative weapon than a confirmed reality. Information warfare thrives on exaggeration, and both sides have reasons to spin the story. The truth is that the Sumy axis remains one of the most volatile, hard-fought battlegrounds, where victories are measured in meters, not miles. The collapse may be a headline, but the real battle is still far from over. When the news broke that Russian General Abachev had been severely wounded, it wasn't just another headline. For many, it felt like a turning point in the war narrative. A decorated general, often seen as a key strategist, suddenly being out of the battlefield creates both confusion and speculation. Reports began circulating rapidly, some claiming only injuries, others suggesting something far worse. Abachev was not just a name in the Russian command structure, he represented experience, battlefield strategy, and authority. Generals like him often serve as both military planners and symbols of stability for frontline troops. His presence could mean discipline, order, and a sense of direction. Removing that figure, even temporarily, creates an invisible gap. Armies function not just on weapons but on morale, and morale often rests on leadership. For Russian troops, hearing that a high-ranking general was struck could trigger fear or doubt. If our generals aren't safe, who is? Becomes the silent question. Wars are not only won by firepower, they are sustained by the soldiers' belief in victory. History shows us that when key commanders fall, even rumors can damage morale more than bullets. Leadership is not just symbolic, it's operational. A general's sudden removal disrupts command chains. Orders may slow down, decision-making can become hesitant, and frontline coordination might suffer. Even if replacements are assigned, the trust and familiarity troops had with Abachev cannot be replicated overnight. This gap could give Ukrainian forces psychological advantage, pressing harder where they sense weakness. Here lies the most dramatic speculation. Ukrainian sources claim that Abachev lost both a hand and a leg. Russian officials only confirm serious injuries. If the harsher version is true, it changes everything, not only ending his frontline career but sending shockwaves across Russian ranks. Symbolically, a general returning to the front wounded is one thing, a general incapacitated forever is another. The psychological message is devastating. Even the most untouchable can be broken. Wars are rarely changed by a single event, yet sometimes, one symbolic moment captures everything. Whether Abachev returns to duty or not, this incident highlights how fragile even the strongest structures can be. For Ukraine, it is a propaganda victory. For Russia, a challenge to prove resilience. In the end, truth often lies somewhere between official statements and battlefield whispers. The battlefield is full of rumors, reports, and narratives. Some sources suggest that Ukraine has successfully breached Russia's frontline positions. Others dismiss these reports as exaggerated propaganda designed to influence morale and international perception. But the real question is, what do you believe? Wars are not only fought with tanks and missiles, they are also fought with information, perception, and belief. In every major conflict, information warfare plays as big a role as physical warfare. One powerful story can lift the morale of one side and crush the confidence of the other. Even if the front line remains intact, the mere belief that it has been broken can create panic, hesitation, and disorganization among troops. This is why propaganda is called the invisible weapon of war. But the question remains, how much of what we hear is fact, and how much is crafted narrative? And then, there is the dramatic twist, the reports of a Russian general being critically wounded. For the military, the loss or injury of a commander is not just a tactical setback, it is a psychological blow. Troops often see generals as symbols of protection and strength. If such a figure is suddenly removed, the impact is immediate. Soldiers may wonder, if even their leaders are not safe, then what about them? Here, fact and perception blur again. Was this a decisive event in the war, or just another moment magnified by rumor? History shows us that sometimes, battles are lost in the mind before they are lost on the ground. The idea of a front line, breaking, may spread faster than reality. Soldiers may believe defeat is coming, even if their positions are still intact. And the opposite is also true. A strong morale can hold positions far longer than weapons alone. This is why both Ukraine and Russia push narratives so aggressively. Each wants to shape the world's perception of what is happening. And this is where you, the audience, come in. Your perspective matters. When you hear these reports, frontline breakthroughs, wounded generals, propaganda claims, what do you personally believe? Is Ukraine truly gaining the upper hand, or are these stories designed to shape how we think about the war? The reality is clear. Yes, there was an attack. Yes, a general was reportedly injured, but the drama surrounding these events is often amplified beyond measure. That's how modern conflicts work, real incidents mixed with layers of exaggeration. It becomes harder to separate truth from narrative. Still, what's undeniable is the psychological ripple effect such news creates on both soldiers and civilians. What this tells us is simple. In war, perception is just as powerful as weapons. A single headline can echo louder than a single missile strike. And while generals may fall, battles continue, narratives continue, and curiosity continues. The truth lies somewhere between fact and fiction, and it is up to us to question, to analyze, and to keep asking, what is real, and what is just a story? And before we end, here's a hint of what's coming next. Whispers are emerging of a new technology that could silently decide the pace of this war. A weapon not of destruction, but of control, shaping how armies move, communicate, and survive. Could this be the hidden game changer? Stay tuned, because in the next video, we'll uncover whether this secret system really has the power to alter the future of modern warfare.